Hey guys, it's Jeff. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. So this is a fiction novel that's set in a dystopian society. And if you don't know what a dystopian society is, it's basically compared to utopian society. Like a utopia is the ideal, perfect world that everyone would want to live in. But a dystopian society is mostly all the time the government's idea of what a perfect society should be, where something is actually wrong and all the people know there's something wrong with the society, but the government is telling you that this is the way that you're supposed to live and this is what a perfect society is supposed to look like. So in this dystopian society, books are illegal to read and to own. And our main character, Guy Montag, is a fireman. But in this version, firefighters, firemen actually start fires rather than stopping them. And the reason being is they don't want people associated with books. They don't want them reading them or thinking about them at all. So what Montag's job is to do is when someone gets ratted out or when people find out that someone has books, they report it to the firemen, and Montag and his fire troop, Fahrenheit 451, goes to that house with their flamethrowers, and they burn everything down in the house except for the house, because they've made, in this book, they've made houses completely fireproof. So everything inside of it will burn, and they don't care if people are there, guarding their stuff. If you're there when they start the fire, too bad. And the reason why this government wanted books banned is because they didn't find any value in them. I find value in them, as do a lot of people. But in their society, they wanted more practical jobs. So instead of people wasting their time reading and fantasizing about mythical creatures and, fictitious things, they wanted people working in jobs that were practical, that were useful on a day-to-day basis, rather than filling their head with a bunch of fairy tales. So basically, anybody that was associated with being an intellectual or being smart or being well-read, it became taboo and it became a dirty word. And anyone who talked about books openly was subject to punishment. But so Guy Montag enjoys being a fireman, and he's been one for, if I remember correctly, like 10 years, something like that, so far. And he enjoys burning. He enjoys burning things down, but he feels a little bit empty. And he changes his mind when his new neighbor Clarice, she's a 17-year-old in high school, they end up walking to work and to school they have the same path, so they end up walking side by side to each other after they get introduced. And Clarice is very curious about the world, wondering why things are the way that they are. Why don't we like books? Why don't people question things more? And the fact that she's even saying this out loud to Montag is kind of like, I guess, impressing him a little bit and making him think. He never really thought about these things before. She asks him, "Are you happy?" And, "Oh yeah, of course I'm happy," but he doesn't really believe it himself, and then later on that night, he's thinking to himself, I'm not really happy. And why am I not happy? Why are books banned? For the reasons that I told you, but really, why don't they want us daydreaming? And why don't they want us aspiring to be more? Why can't we have this in our life? So after he's introduced to Clarice and she starts making him think about his world more often and in different ways, he has a change of heart to the point where every time he goes to a house to burn all the books down, when nobody's looking, he takes one and tries to hide it in his jacket, and eventually ends up stockpiling a bunch of books hidden in his house up in like a vent somewhere, without the knowledge of his wife. And ends up at every chance that he can get, opening it up and kind of reading a little bit to really see what all the fuss is about, basically. So even talking about books and mentioning them in passing is pretty illegal in this world. Although, and even though it's a dystopian society where they, the government will, come and kill you basically if you have these books, depending on, I guess, the severity of your crime. I didn't really feel the same sense of danger in this book that I did when reading 1984, if you've ever read it, by George Orwell. In that book, there just seemed to be danger at every corner, where even if you said something out loud, even if you were thinking it, then they could put you to death. And that might be due to the fact that they were literally monitored at all times with those telescreens that they have in their houses. This book doesn't have that, but I didn't really feel like there was a lot of danger in this book for Montag, reading. I feel like he could have gotten away with it. Really, the fault was his when he started speaking out and he started telling people about it, when that itself was dangerous. But I didn't really feel a sense of danger when he was reading a book or, trying to steal a book. It just didn't grab me like that. And, is it fair for me to compare this book to 1984? No, I don't, maybe not. I wouldn't compare every science fiction movie or science fiction book that I read to Star Wars or Star Trek, because of those are the most popular. But it's kind of hard not to compare books of this genre, because as far as I know, there's not a lot that exists. There's not like there's a dystopian novel section at Barnes and Noble, or in bookstores. But it's kind of hard not to compare them when I didn't really get the same sense of like urgency that 1984 gave compared to this book. I'm also not really sure if I'm 100% on board with his writing style, with Bradbury's writing style. At times it felt like things were rushed, scenes were rushed and kind of mushed together. And there were a couple times when all of a sudden he would launch into this description of war, of bombs going off and planes flying overhead. And I was like, wait a minute, did I miss something? I have to go back here. But Montag would all of a sudden be daydreaming about something or, what might happen. But he kind of transitioned it in a way that felt like a little unnatural to me. I felt like if he had put those sections in like italics to show that there was a different part of the story happening, rather than just like blending it into like this stream of consciousness type of thing for Montag, I felt like I would have recognized it a little bit better. So yeah, there were certain parts where though it is a quick read and it's great, it just felt a little jarring and a little like sudden, the way that he would describe things and the way that things happened. And sometimes the dialogue felt a little strange to me. Like I remember thinking a couple times, like, people don't really talk like that. The way that they're having like a normal, casual conversation, it just felt like, it just felt like it was forced, like almost like like movie dialogue or something. I don't know. It just felt a little strange to me. I also felt like the war aspect of the book felt a little just like thrown in at the last second, or was tried to add an extra element to it that really didn't play that important of a role. I don't feel like the war was that important throughout this book, because every once in a while he'd mention effects of the war, very small portions, but he'd always reference like jet planes flying overhead. But even at the very end of the book, when there is some like side effect of the war for people who have read it, when Montag is walking with the group of people that he meets up with, even then, I didn't really feel like the war had that much of an impact on the story. Even now, I don't even really know what I guess this country was at war with who they were even at war with. like in 1984, they used war as, another layer of control where the bordering countries would, or at least Oceania would say, we're at war with this country. No, we're not at war with this country anymore. We've always been at war with this person. To keep the people confused. This one felt more like a real war, but I don't feel like it added that much substance to the story. But I don't know. I just right now I don't know which book was published first off the top of my head. So whether Bradbury wanted to imitate that, or if Orwell imitated the war, based on this book, I don't know which one came first. Whether they had any knowledge of each other's books, who knows? But the war in this book felt a little underwhelming at times. So mostly throughout this review, I feel like I've been kind of picking at the negative things of the book. But this really is a fantastic book. It's a very quick read. It's only about 160 pages long. There's some other things in here, like interviewing the author, like an afterword, and then there's like they call it a coda, and where they're interviewing the author and just kind of elaborating on things, how it gained its success, because mine was the 50th anniversary edition. And I think that was back in 2000, or 2003, something like that. So I've seen a 60th anniversary edition, and I'm sure a 70th is coming up. So this book has been around for a really long time, and it deserves to be so, because with every dystopian novel just comes like a unique perspective on how bad society could get. And we don't want to be there, because we want people to be, free thinking and, not just, like smothered by other people. And in this book, people are definitely smothered by the government saying, you can't have books. We don't want you daydreaming. If you want to go off in your fairy tale land, we'll send you there and we'll kill you on the way. So this book really is really fantastic, really unique. And after I score it, which is coming up next, I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit. There's a part towards the end of the book where it like literally gave me chills in a good way. And that doesn't really happen a lot when I'm reading. So I knew that was something special. So with all that being said, I'm going to give this book a 4 out of 5. It's a really unique twist on, what society could be like. A few negatives, like I mentioned before, but overall, really enjoyable read. And actually, this book, I don't normally read more than one book at a time. I'm in the middle of another one right now, and I picked this one up, and I started just reading a couple pages, and it made me put that book down for a week or two, or however long I don't think it took me longer than 2 weeks to read this, maybe like a week and a half. And it made me put that book down because I was so entranced by what this story had to offer. So, it made me quit another book for the time being just to read this one. So that's how big of an impact it can have on you. 4 out of 5. Stick around for in a couple, 30 seconds or so to hear what I had to say about the part that gave me chills, because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who didn't read the book. I'll let you pause the video if you don't want to hear the spoiler part. Okay, so spoiler part. The part at the end when Montag is walking with the group of people that he meets, where everybody has memorized a part of a book, or mainly the people who live on the outskirts of society in the wilderness, that value books as much as he does now. The part when, I forget the guy's name, but I just want to read a little bit of it here. Montag, for people who are sticking around, Montag tried to memorize as much of the Bible as he could, so that even if his books got confiscated or lost, he would still remember some of it, and ends up finding a group of people who are basically doing the same thing. People who value books but memorize them so that they're not actually caught red-handed with books, but they still retain all that knowledge. And in the future, they're talking several generations down the line when people have had enough and they're saying, all right, well, we need to change something about this society that we live in, because books are valuable. It shows us, it has a rich history to it, and it shows us where we came from, and all of the, the greatest minds that have put their thoughts down on paper. We value that, and we want to share that with people. So what gave me chills is this part here where this guy goes, "Would you like someday, Montag, to read Plato's Republic? Of course. I am Plato's Republic. Like to read Marcus Aurelius? Mr. Simmons is Marcus." "How do you do?" says Mr. Simmons. "Hello," says Montag. "I want you to meet Jonathan Swift, the author of that evil political book, Gulliver's Travels. And this other fellow is Charles Darwin. And this one is Schopenhauer, and this one is Einstein, and this one here at my elbow is Mr. Albert Schweitzer, a very kind philosopher indeed. Here we all are, Montag. Aristophanes and Mahatma Gandhi and Gautama Buddha and Confucius and Thomas Love Peacock and Thomas Jefferson and Mr. Lincoln, if you please. We are also Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John." And I just got chills reading that, because it was just really profound for me to say, just the way that Bradbury wrote that's just like that's like a half a page worth of writing here. And just reading the way that he describes it, and I'm Plato, nice to meet you. This over here is Jonathan Swift. That guy over there, he's Marcus Aurelius. Just the way that he was introducing all those other people as the authors of the books, because those original books don't exist anymore. That gave me chills, and I still got goosebumps right now talking about it. So that alone, hopefully, would give you chills like I got to want to read this book. So thanks for watching. 4 out of 5. Please subscribe to my channel and like this video. Share it wherever you can. And I'll see you guys on the next book review. Take care. Bye.